Rosie was just telling me that she's going to have a teddy bear's picnic.
I got confused for some reason. I was thinking that would involve hiding teddies, but I'm getting confused with Easter eggs, aren't I?
Yeah, that's an Easter egg hunt. Yeah.
Today's the day the teddy bears have the picnic.
and that's right. We have that on Spotify. So I'll have that. Oh, wow.
Welcome to episode 5 of Keeping on Track. I'm Bradley Williams.
And I'm Adam Heath.
And we are really excited today to be talking to you. Well, not only are we going to be talking about a great film, but we've also got the director and co-founder of OnTrack International with us today, Mrs. Rosie Bailey. And she's going to be joining us to talk about mentoring.
Just quickly, is it fair to say Rosie is kind of the reason that we're here? Because if she hadn't founded OnTrack, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
I would go one more than that. If Rosie hadn't founded OnTrack and then wasn't so tolerant of my wayward behaviours, we wouldn't be here today.
Do you know what, Brad? I love your wayward behaviours. You know that. You make the world a brighter place, so you carry on being wayward.
I'd like to call it a breath of fresh air, but I don't know how fresh that air is. So, but no, thank you for joining us, Rosie. It's lovely to have you.
You provide a breath of very creative fresh air. So
Adam's such a great advocate to have because I would consider Adam a facilitator rather than anything else. And Adam's really good at anything I say. Should we do this? He'll just go, yeah, sure. Let's just give it a go. And if it falls flat, it's your fault. So I get the best of both worlds. But you're currently enjoying the sunshine in Oxfordshire, isn't it?
Oxfordshire, yeah.
Yes,
absolutely. No, it's fantastic. Actually, I think it's although I'm still working and doing, fulfilling my director responsibilities within the business, I'm also having some time off, and I think this is the first time since the start of my working career I've had any substantial time off. So I have to say, it's fantastic. I really and do you know what? There's a great thing, isn't it, about time, and how powerful time can be, and what it helps you to do is to think. And I've felt very productive because I've just had time to think. So it's good, and the sun is shining, makes it even better.
It is. And is there anything that you've always wanted to do? Because I know that you ride horses and you're very involved in that kind of equestrian world. But is there anything that you've always wanted to do, or that's been on your bucket list for a long time that you finally had a chance to do while you've been taking some of this time out?
Well, I guess one of the things is I've started to learn the piano when my kids were very small, and really enjoyed it, but really stopped because of the demands of work, having small children and so forth. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to start playing the piano again. So I bought myself a piano. So yeah.
And is there anything you've been learning particularly, or has it been starting at chopsticks and working your way up?
Chopsticks. I think from our conversation earlier, I need to start learning to play the Teddy Bear's Picnic song, so I can give a rendition and be an even super grandmother. So
that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think so. So Rosie, obviously you're here today to talk to us about mentoring. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a second to introduce the film that we've picked for this week. And that film is Moonlight, which was directed and written by Barry Jenkins, based on an unpublished play by Terrell McCraney. And it tells the story of Chiron, a young boy growing up in Miami. And the story follows him at 3 stages in his life. One where he goes under the moniker of Little as a young boy, then as he reaches his teen years, and then again we pick up 10 years later when he's in his 20s and he's going by the name of Black. The film won multiple Academy Awards and famously was involved in the debacle where the wrong movie was called, and La La Land was announced as the winner, but it was actually Moonlight itself that won Best Picture that year. And the film deals with themes such as identity, sexuality, as it's no secret that the character in the film begins to understand that he is gay, and as he gets older and goes through these different stages in his life, the kind of highs and lows of discovering that about himself. And the reason that we picked the film today is because I think it's very easy to find mentors in cinema. We could have gone straight away, okay, name a mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And there's one of the most famous mentors you can name, Yoda, so, anyone from Star Wars, things like that. But I think that Moonlight was a conscious choice on my behalf, because I felt that the mentoring that was on display here was much more informal, was much more ad hoc, and also, as previously mentioned, I think it kind of shows the highs and lows of mentoring, and actually doesn't just portray it as you find someone, they teach you to be a better person. There's a lot more nuance to it, and I felt that was going to kind of provide us with some interesting topic points. Now, Rosie, I know you've seen the film, because I think you said it. You absolutely loved it. And so, when did you first see the movie?
About long ago, actually, about 3 months ago.
Oh wow, okay, so it's quite fresh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Adam, you've never watched any movie ever, so I know you've got this sitting in a stack of Blu-rays in your house. Have you watched it?
I've gone old school this week. I've been authentic to me, Brad. I haven't watched it.
Of course, yes. Well, you're in for a treat, Adam, and for our listeners out there, we will be discussing the film in depth at various points, and so we obviously come with the caveat of a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the film, I suggest that you do watch it, because it is a wonderful movie. I don't think there's anything wildly surprise heavy that happens, but once again, if you want to watch the film from fresh, please do go watch it before listening to this podcast. Now, so Rosie, let's start by talking about mentoring. If someone said to you, okay, I've never heard of mentoring before, I've just come from another planet, please can you tell me in a few sentences what mentoring actually is? How would you describe it?
That's a good question. I think the first thing to say is that mentoring is not new. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years in some shape or form or other. And if you go back to say the ancient Greeks, Socrates mentored Plato, Plato mentored Aristotle. So it's been around for a long time. And I think if I was to describe it, I would say it's a kind of a system of semi-structured guidance where one person shares their knowledge, their expertise, their skills to help others to progress in their own lives. And that could be progressing in their lives professionally, or it could be personally. I think that sort of would be my, and I think semi-structured, the word semi-structured is really important.
Okay, so when you say semi-structured, what do you mean by that? What would you ascertain?
Well, if you think about, because often people will put mentoring and coaching in the same bag, and I guess sometimes as a mentor, of course, coaching is part of what we do, but there's a lot of other things as well. Mentoring could go on for a long, long time, whereas coaching tends to be have a definitive time scale. There tend to be structured sessions that you might have with your coachee. Whereas mentoring is, one of the most important parts of being a mentor is being there when you're needed, and that's certainly something that comes out of the film, where Juan is there when it matters. So you can't then just say, well, actually, I can't talk to you because we don't have our structured session till next week at 10 o'clock on a Monday. You've got to respond. You've got to be there and have the time available to spend time with your mentee when they need it.
This is a weird word for me to throw in, but I often think about companionship as well. For me, a mentor is a companion because you're kind of tackling life together. Actually, sometimes there isn't a planned structure to how life's going to unfold, and we don't know the questions we're going to need answering at any given time. But you're kind of facing it together, and likewise, the mentor hasn't got a preset answer to a problem. They're there to kind of work through things almost with you.
Exactly, and I think it's interesting actually. Simon Sinek compares being a mentor and having a mentor and mentee relationship to a friendship, and he said it's not just a case of saying to someone who you don't know, well, please would you be my mentor? Like you might say, please would you be my friend? Because you've got to know that that person is right for you, and you respect them, you trust them, you feel safe with them. And it is a two-way road. And Simon Sinek sort of famously said that he was being mentored by an individual, and on one occasion he sort of slapped this guy on the back and said, "Thank you so much for being my mentor." And the guy returned the slap on the back and said to Simon, "Well, thank you for being mine." And so I think Adam's right. It's that it is very much a two-way street, and we learn from the people we're mentoring just as they will learn from us.
I'm only just starting to realise who some of my mentors have been and are, and actually that's taken years to happen. That sounds kind of strange, but I remember when I left my previous job, when I was taking the jump to work for myself, very freelance. My manager asked me, "Who's going to be your mentor?" And I was fairly dismissive, because that corporate culture is inclined to talk about models and kind of philosophies, and to me it felt too corporate. Who's your mentor? I don't need a mentor. It didn't make any sense to me. And it's taken me till very recently to realise he's been a mentor, even though I've not spoke to him for many years. Actually, he's kind of influenced my career and my life more than I knew at that time, and it's taken me a long time to recognise it. And as I got to grips with leading a team myself, I'm now realizing what he went through and what his experiences were and what I did or didn't do to help him, and makes me appreciate a whole lot more the influence of that person, the kind of far-reaching influence, and recognize that for better or worse, I was offering something back as a mentee. I was helping him become a better mentor, or perhaps giving him challenges as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think, when I was thinking about this subject actually over the weekend, I was thinking, well, we develop those mentors without even realizing it. And we do it, a lot of us will do it from a very young age. And I think the best way to explain that is, if you think back to being at school, and there were certain subjects you loved, and often you loved them and wanted to do well at them because of the teacher who taught that subject. And whatever it was about them in terms of the way they connected with you, how safe you felt with them, how able to how you were able to maybe be vulnerable with them, but they really had a big impact on them. And I can still remember two very influential teachers when I was growing up that made a huge impact on me. So I think sometimes it happens and we don't even realize it, and sometimes not till later, as Adam was saying, that we recognise there were people who've had an influence on us.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned one from the film, because I think his ghost kind of permeates Chiron's entire life, and we see. So he dies at some point between when he's the character of Little when he's young and when he becomes a teenager, and there are moments in the film where there's an assimilation between food and the ocean, and those two things are key to his relationship with Juan, in the fact that the first time they met, he took him out for food, he took him back to his house, he fed him. The next time they met, he took him to the beach and taught him to swim. And so those two kind of formative experiences, I feel, are indicative of that mentor-mentee relationship, and the fact that you're building touchstones of moments where they will figure heavily in your experiences going forward, and it might not be something as physical or as literal as a specific place or a specific item, but I think you will remember a moment or a conversation or an exchange of words that echo in your experiences going forward. To me, I feel like the difference between a coach and a mentor is a coach shows you how to do something and shows you how to do it better. A mentor is someone who shows you who you are and shows you how to be a better person. Is that too reductive, or would you feel that that's in some way truthful?
I think you're right, and it goes back to the fact that coaching is a structured activity, and there's a very definite reason why someone is being coached. So it might be I might coach someone to become a better presenter. So I know that's the goal. That's where that's what I'm heading for. That's what I need to achieve in the time that I have available and the budget that's available for me to work with that person. A mentor, because it's much. I think much more wide-ranging than that. So it could be, giving practical advice and encouragement and support. It could be increasing social and academic confidence, all those sorts of things. And it could be providing strategies that person could use because they've got maybe a particular situation that they don't know how to handle. And because of the longevity often of the relationship, there's lots of different things that will come into play and lots of different challenges that the mentee may have to help, the mentor will have to help the mentee with. So I think I think you're right in what you say about the difference between the two.
Oh, I don't know that it's that critical to have that definition kind of clearly understood. You don't need to know your mentor or a mentee. It is an organic relationship.
And that's possibly what makes Moonlight unique, is that Chiron actually does, like you say, Rosie, you could argue he probably has 3 mentors throughout the film. He has one, he has Kevin, and he has Teresa. And Teresa kind of picks up the mantle from one once he dies. And Kevin almost gradually becomes all of those people combined by the end of the film. And you've got those moments where Juan's kind of, he's taking care of Chiron's mind. He's helping him to become become more confident and comfortable with who he is. And they have that really kind of tragic discussion.
What's a faggot?
A faggot is a word used to make gay people feel bad.
Am I a faggot?
No. You could be gay, but you gotta let nobody call you no faggot. I mean, unless...
How do I know?
Just do. I think.
You'll know when you know.
Hey. You gotta know right now. All right? Not yet.
Kind of see the bullying that's going on in Chiron's life, and that there's that real focus on that, and then that's picked up later on where he's a teenager and he sits at Teresa's house and she's trying to talk to him and she says to him, hey, look at me, remember what I said, in this house we only have love and pride. And so she's trying to once again make him feel more confident in who he is. Whereas Kevin almost takes care of the physicality, the body. He helps, with the strength, pick up, stand up for yourself and all those different things. And then, and he kind of often, it's weird because I was trying to watch it in more objectively, and I noticed that a lot of the interactions that Chiron has with Juan precede the experiences he has with his mother. So he goes to Juan builds him up, he goes to his mother tears him back down again. And then Kevin's exchanges often show up after a physical altercation with like Terrell and the other bullies. So he'll be bullied, and then he'll get Terrell, Kevin will come along and say, I'm going to try and teach you more physically. So I think that also shows that with that mentoring, and like you said, it's not structured, it doesn't come at specific places, but I think often if we know we have a mentor or we realize we have a mentor, we can gravitate towards them at certain points. And then maybe to the earlier point about not knowing whether you're a mentor or a mentee at any given point, there's that moment where just, the last exchange that Sharon has with Juan is where he makes him face the reality that he's a drug dealer and that he's contributing to the issues that are driving Sharon's own life. He's the person that is selling crack and inadvertently is selling crack to Sharon's mum. So he has to face that truth about himself. And then Kevin has that moment where, he comes across as an independent spirit, but he's still beholden to the demands and social pressures of being in high school. And so when Terrell basically almost says to him, I'm going to get you to punch someone today and you're going to do it, right? And so in an effort to save his own skin, Kevin ends up having Sharon picked out and he has to hit him. And he says that thing of like, stay down. And that both those moments are Sharon inadvertently holding a mirror up to his mentors and showing them their own weaknesses and areas that they can build. And so I do think you're right, Adam. I do think that mentor-mentee relationship is quite fluid.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things there that are so important in a good mentoring relationship, and that is mutual trust and mutual respect of each other.
Brad?
Yeah.
Without wishing to make it all about me, which I'm certainly not.
Rosie, how do we deal with egotistical people? No, carry on. Go on.
But no, I'm listening to Rosie and agree wholeheartedly. But I'm reflecting on my own experiences and seeing a kind of fatal flaw that I made in being quite dismissive when it was a really fair question. I was asked, who's going to be your mentor? And I wasn't in a place to kind of understand the need for one. But I'm wondering if we should discuss the kind of the value, as it were, and why it's okay to kind of aspire to find a mentor and want to have one. Because I know I probably was very pessimistic about needing a mentor. And I think that in retrospect, what could I have achieved with someone actually who could have been that kind of guiding light almost, or that supportive kind of shoulder to lean on. So I just wonder if we should discuss the value to the individual.
Yeah, so I guess maybe the wider point here is what happens if you're in an organisation where you don't have a mentor readily available on staff, or maybe you work on your own, or you only work with a couple of you, and it's quite hard to mentor each other in such a small environment, because sometimes I feel like part of being a mentor or having a mentor is having someone with a different perspective, someone who's going to be able to, like you said, Rosie, it's not always about providing answers. Sometimes it's just about listening and actually helping someone work through something on their own. But is there, what would be the ideal situation of, I work on my own, I'm in a small company, I need a mentor, but how do I source a mentor? Where does that come from? What would your kind of thoughts around that be?
Well, I think, again, that comes back to this point that it's people that you meet who you have a connection with, that you find that you like, that you find they're easy to communicate with, you connect with them. And so I guess the more you network, the more people you meet, the more likely you are to find that individual. And I think your point about having a different perspective is really, really important. And because that's actually that there's nothing better than someone who's looking at things through a different lens. And sometimes if they're too close to you in terms of, say, within the same organization, then maybe that doesn't happen, or then maybe you have issues with people that you want help with, and maybe they know those people, so therefore it makes it difficult, and so on. But I think it's interesting how say Juan, obviously he's not Sharon's father, but and he hasn't got that father figure in his life, or that parent in his life that's sort of secure and so forth. And I think often if you think about people when they're growing up, they'll often think the last people they'll think of as a mentor are maybe their parents, because their parents don't know anything in their eyes. They're just painful sometimes because they get in the way of them wanting to do stuff. And I certainly, with my own two kids who are both now grown up, my two boys, they've both had significant mentors in their life, and I'm so glad that they have, because actually it's helped them navigate those those tricky years, from sort of late teens into the 20s, when you're making big decisions about what you want to do with your life and so forth. So, to go back to your first question, your question about how do you get one? I think you've got to network. You've got to spread your wings. I think I met somebody who I mentor at a conference, and I just happened to strike up conversation with this person. We really got on together. I really liked them. They liked me, and I still act as a very informal mentor to them. And that's a few years ago.
So is there a moment when you realise, oh, I've become a mentor, or oh, it's actually someone's mentoring me? Is there a light bulb moment, or do you think it's more of those conscious decisions to ask questions and seek advice? Is that what drives it? What would you say is the kind of
I think if somebody who I knew and was wanting to spend time with me, they were doing things like they were ringing me up, they were asking me lots of questions because they wanted support, help, guidance. Then I'd be thinking, okay, this is becoming more of a mentor relationship, and because obviously the question you get asked a lot of questions because that's they're kind of seeking that help and that guidance and that support from you, and when that starts to happen, I think that's probably the time when you say, well, this is the kind of the style of this relationship is changing slightly into a mentor. And I've had that happen. I've had it happen with friends. I've had it happen within a professional capacity, as well as the more structured time where you do formally become the mentor. But it's not a case of just saying, oh, will you be my mentor?
And then you wear a sticker on your shirt that says mentor.
Yeah, mentor. I could be your mentor.
One of the things that happens is when you start to sense or develop a sense of responsibility is when you realise. For me, when I felt responsible for the way someone was acting, I realized that I was having an influence on them. I was mentoring them, and I didn't even know I'd been mentoring them. And it was incumbent on me to kind of put their needs first and think a little bit more about not the advice I was given as it would suit me, but how it would suit them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a moment where it dawns on you.
Yeah, I think the a little, an important part of mentoring is that whole role modeling thing. I want to be like you. Okay, they don't necessarily want to be exactly like you, but they want to have some of what you have and how you're doing things. So it could be, your expertise. So, for you, Adam, the people that maybe look to you as a mentor, or they want to try and glean that expertise and learn from you because of that. And you're very much the role model, so there is that responsibility about fulfilling that role model capability.
And it's interesting, that point about responsibilities, because to bring it back to Moonlight again, there is a tragic reality in the sense that when Sharon as a teenager gets to the end of his narrative of that part of the story, two things have built up in his mind. So he's had those formative experiences with one, and he's learnt a lot of wonderful things from him. But he's also seen somebody who carries a lot of their strength, a lot of their passion, a lot of their confidence from who they are as an individual, namely a drug peddler. And then he has those moments with Kevin where Kevin has a lot of the bravado, a lot of kind of sexually aggressive talk, the physicality, the beating up, the fighting, even to the point where he gives him the nickname of Black, that Sharon kind of dismisses and challenges a lot in that kind of middle period of his life. And then they have that moment on the beach, and then the next day he gets beaten up by Kevin, and we jump forward now to his mid-20s, and now he's driving around with that same crown on his dashboard, almost a carbon copy of Juan in terms of the look and the dress. He's taken the moniker of Black as his new name, and so he's taken all of the negative influences of his role models onto himself, because they failed him at the last moment. And I think that is probably one of the scarier things as a mentor, is if you're giving bad advice or you're not practicing what you're preaching, or they're going to maybe pick up on the wrong cues. It's almost like being a parent in a way. And so I wonder whether understanding the transparency and actually realizing that you are not just there to give advice or cheerlead someone, you're actually there to protect and support them, and to take that responsibility, like you said earlier on, Rosie. If you can't take that responsibility on, you shouldn't mentor. But at the same time, I guess if someone's kind of keep coming up to you and asking you advice, maybe they're teaching you something about yourself there, and that you have some qualities that are admirable, and you have some qualities that can be of value to someone else, but you also need to be mindful of which of those qualities you're sharing with somebody. Or the thing is
that what happens is, like you just said, you perhaps shouldn't mentor if you're that person, but the likelihood is you are mentoring without even realizing it. There is potentially someone who is looking to you, taking something from you, whether you realize it or not. So you are kind of, irrespective whether you choose to.
And I think that's the big thing, is to, is there a way of, and maybe this isn't a question that we necessarily have an answer for, but is there a way or a methodology to follow where, I realise I'm now in the role of mentor, I need to make some changes, or I need to be careful. Do you dress with that person and say to them, hey, look, I've noticed that we've got quite a nice relationship here. I know that you're taking a lot of advice or cues from me, but there's some things I'm doing that maybe, I don't think are necessarily that great, or you shouldn't. Do we address that, or do we just, is there an intimation of, I'll just try and be the best person I can, and that hopefully they'll forget those other things? What would or should we do if we find ourselves in that position and we realise there are things about ourselves that we wouldn't want someone else to emulate?
Yeah, I think though, at the end of the day, we're human, and and people do make mistakes.
Yeah.
The smart people learn from those mistakes and then don't make them anymore. But but in my experience of being, if I think about people who I would regard as mentors to me, one of the things that I actually like is when someone says, I didn't go about that in necessarily the right way. I could have done that differently.
Yeah.
I made a mistake here. I think that having that kind of humility is very powerful, and I think makes a connection stronger in any kind of relationship, whether it be a mentee relationship or mentor relationship or any other. But somebody who is prepared to look at how they do things and think, I messed up. I didn't do what I should have done there. I was wrong.
Yeah.
And has got the courage to say that. I think, but the important thing is you learn from it. You right, next time I'm going to make sure I don't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest experiences for me with a mentor, was when they showed their humanity. And they were able to say, I've messed up, and give me examples from their life. And suddenly they were not a mentor or a coach anymore. They were a friend.
Exactly. And I think that's a very important part of the whole relationship. As again with any relationship, is that openness, being able to declare your vulnerability is very powerful. Because nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes.
So we've said that obviously that mentoring is an informal thing. It's not something that we necessarily have to seek out, but if we do need to seek it out, there are ways to kind of go about trying to ingratiate ourselves to individuals that we maybe respect or want to learn more about.
Yeah.
If those things aren't available to us, or if we don't feel confident enough to do those things, are there more formal ways to engage a mentoring scheme or to be part of a mentoring scheme? Or are there more structured ways that we can set those things out before it falls into coaching? Or is it very much, it has to be very organic and very fluid?
Well, there's not many people, if you ask them, would you help me? Are going to turn around and say, no, I can't. Very unusual person to do that. But I think, there are those situations, and I've certainly had lots with, especially traveling, sitting on a plane, sitting next to someone, and I get to finish that plane journey. I think, my goodness, I've just sort of learned so much from that person, and I may have talked to them about something random. It might have been a challenge in my life, but I've actually I've actually come away with some. Gosh, you've really helped me. Just So I think those kind of very, very sort of ad hoc situations, and although it's not going to be a long-term relationship, it still can be very useful in terms of providing, help and support for an immediate need.
Definitely. So then, if we had to, it's a shame we have to kind of close our conversation up now. Time's running out, and it's been wonderful talking to you, Rosie. You're a font of knowledge. And so if you had to quantify in terms of people saying, if I'm thinking about I need a mentor in my life or I'd like to mentor somebody, what we're saying here is just be open, be honest, be a friend. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
Well, I think I go back to that having that passion to see people learn, grow, develop. You've got to have that passion, because it's I don't work as a mentor with a lot of the people I work as a mentor with for financial gain. It's because I actually get a real buzz out of seeing people grow. So you've got to have that. That's essential.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, if you'd permit me, I'd like to engage my more pretentious side and give you my my reflections on what I think the ending of Moonlight actually means. And then, Rosie, I'd be quite keen to hear your reflections on it as well.
Oh, gosh.
And so I felt that in the last kind of 20 minutes of the film or so, there's a spiral where Chiron kind of revisits all of the issues in his life. So he visits his mum and he almost forgives her, and that reflects the conversation that he had with Juan very early on, where he said, I used to hate my mum and then I learned to love her. And then he goes to the restaurant where he meets up with Kevin as an older gentleman who cooks for him, which is reminiscent of his first exchange with Juan, where he fed him. Then he goes back to Kevin's apartment, which is by the ocean, which is reminiscent of the time Juan taught him to swim, and the first exchange, like the first kind of open sexual exchange that he had with Kevin, that maybe led him to understand a little bit more about his identity. And then he goes into the apartment. They have that conversation, and then the closing image of the film is of the young Juan, the young Chiron, the little Monica Chiron, standing by the ocean, looking out at the water with that moonlight on his skin, and he turns and looks at the camera. And to me, that felt like he was regressing to a state of development again, and that there were maybe 2 or 3 times where he started to develop as an individual, started to understand who he was and feel confident and comfortable in his own skin. And that stopped the moment that Kevin hit him in the playground, and that when he got back to that final moment in Kevin's apartment, it was almost picking up from that point and reflecting back to that conversation that Juan had with him about when he grew up in Cuba, and that lady had said to him about, you may look certain way on the outside, but when the moonlight hits you, I can see someone else, and I can see your true form, which is why I'm going to call you Blue. And that was just, and so for me, I felt like the end of that story wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't a final ending, but it was a hopeful ending, in the sense of now, hopefully, Chiron can carry on his journey to self-discovery and learning more about himself and becoming a more comfortable and confident person. But that was kind of my view of the movie, in line with thinking about mentoring. But Rosie, I'd love it, if you wouldn't mind, if it's okay. I've just sprung this on you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings around the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, obviously the end is open to interpretation, all sorts of interpretation.
Of course.
And I guess what did I feel about it? Well, I mean, obviously the whole film is that a kind of, that journey from the neglected childhood through angry adolescence, and then finally to some kind of self-realization and fulfillment in his adulthood. But I guess we never stop. We're always developing, aren't we, as people? And I think that I think you're right in how you see the end, in that it's a more hopeful place. But he's going to carry on through his life having those challenges, as we all do, and so forth. And picking up on what we've been talking about with regard to a mentor, I think through different stages in our lives, different mentors can be applicable, because we never stay the same. We change continually.
Yeah.
So yeah, my feeling about the end is that I would agree with you. It is hopeful, but I think there's quite a journey in front of him.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Maybe there'll be a sequel called Daylight, maybe.
Daylight. I'm just about to say that. Yeah. But yeah, incredible. But the other thing about being a mentor is you can go into you can't go into a bookshop at the moment, of course, but you can say look online, and there's innumerable self-help books for to help you be a better person, be a better business person, and so forth. But I don't think anything takes the place of that human relationship that you can have, which can help you to be to learn and to have that person who's there when it matters, who says the right thing at the right time, and provides you with that ear, and can give you the advice and so forth that you need. Very few books will help. They will do some of it, but there's nothing takes the place of that human contact.
Definitely.
And that's where the mentor is so powerful.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I completely agree. And I think let's be vigilant for opportunities to be mentored, and let's be vigilant for opportunities to mentor others, and don't be scared, and just be yourself, and be honest, and be practical, and listen and ask questions. And I think those are some of the biggest takeaways from me, at least, from this conversation. And it's made me realise, Rosie, that you're a mentor to me. And I'm not just saying that because you're my boss. I'm saying it because, I think, there are times when I've seen in your behaviours things that I've felt very admirable. And so thank you for that.
In that case, Brad, I'm super excited to hear how you're going to score this on the Brad Williams 5-star rating system. What are you going to give Moonlight?
I'm going to give it a 5. I'm just going to go straight with a 5. Yeah. I just think it's an amazing film. Absolutely love it. And
I mean, you've just spent 40 minutes telling me what you thought of the film, and it's clear that you adore this film, Brad. Absolutely clear.
I do.
Yeah.
Powerful piece of work.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got difference as well. That film had a almost non-existent budget, a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
Absolutely no budget whatsoever in the grand scheme of things. Shot in about 25 days, from what I'm reading. So it's an incredible piece of work. A lot of love and energy poured into it, and it's doing some good in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not a film you would put on continually and watch 4 or 5 times in a year, but I think once a year, twice a year is enough sustenance to, like a bear, eat it and then go into hibernation and just enjoy it, enjoy the nourishment. So yeah, that's 5 stars for me.
Right.
Fun fact about Rosie, for all of anyone listening, Rosie is a professional actor and has a rich history of stage acting. And did you do any kind of film or TV, Rosie, or was it mostly stage?
No, I did the odd little TV commercial, which paid the rent. So
anything we can look up on YouTube?
No.
I'll find out and let everyone know.
No.
So if we need her, then she could be our emergency contact if we need something.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm open to bar mitzvahs, weddings.
The wedding singer.
The wedding singer. Yeah. How to empty a room in 5 seconds. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, both, and thank you all for listening.
Not at all.
And we'll see you again next week. Thank you all.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.